All right, people out there in podcast land, thank you for joining us today on real estate investing for nurses happy hour. So I got my happy hour drink. It's actually sparkling water, but still, it's a happy hour drink for
I
me.
was gonna say, what's in your cup?
That's what people say. What's in your cup, girl? Because I always have a cup with me. But this is Tasha McCray, founder of the Nurse REI Club, and I am super excited today that I have another member of the Nurse REI Club joining me today on this podcast. And she's been an investor for about 3 years, so she has a particular niche that she'll talk about once we get started. And I know a lot of people out there haven't found their niche yet. You know, a lot of people out there are just still trying to figure out, which way should I go. So I'm happy to have our guest here so she can talk about her niche, the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, and the ugly as it pertains to what she's doing in real estate investing. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Miss Dawna Willis to the podcast. Hey, Dawna.
Hello, everyone. So yes, my name is Dawna Willis. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been practicing for about 18 years.
Wow.
And along the way, as you get older, you just realize it's time to work smarter and not harder.
Yes.
And one of the quickest and easiest ways, I noticed that a lot of nurses like doing real estate. I like looking at homes. I noticed a lot of nurses would get their real estate license and sell a few homes on the side versus working a lot of overtime hours. So I just kind of combined both of them. I said, let me look into, this real estate stuff. I also believe in investing in foreclosed homes. So that's how we got our properties that we stay in. And so that, to me, that's one of the easiest ways also for people to get into it is when you're looking to purchase your own home, like just don't pay retail, buy a foreclosed home, a short sale, and you almost instantly have equity in it. So the first home that we purchased, we got it cheap, really, really cheap. We refinanced for a 15-year loan, paid it off early, and then rented it out. And then by the time we sold it, it's like we got all our money back that we put into the home and more. So it's almost like you get free property, just, and I never understood that concept until much later on where you can build up your equity, sell it, and invest in another property. But I would say that's the first thing to do is like invest in your own property, like short sale foreclosure, build up the equity. And then that was a learning process too in fixing up that home to sell because you learn contracting, dealing with contractors and DIY and sweat equity and what's worth putting money in. So learned a lot of lessons that way too. But I first took a conference in Chicago, Illinois, on tax lien investing. And what kind of attracted me to that is the guy was advertising you can buy homes for $500. And so I watched and I was like, this cannot be true. And it was. People were buying properties for $500 left and right. Somebody bought an apartment complex. Well, really, it was like a multiplex. So they had like 2 or 3 properties inside the one. They almost lost their property by not following all the rules. So that's the other side to tax lien investing. You have to know your deadlines and what notices you have to send out so that you don't lose the property. And that's just the main thing is doing your due diligence and when you're looking at properties and picking properties to bid on. But, and that's a learning process. The redemption period in Gary is also shorter than other redemption periods. So that was another reason why I was attracted to let me invest in Gary. I did do 1 year where I purchased a tax property in Memphis. And of course, since we may have, I say the amount of properties that are behind on tax liens is just so much greater in Gary, Indiana than here in Memphis. So let's say in Gary, Indiana, you may have 40 pages of tax lien properties. Here in Memphis, you may have like 10 or 15, and then you have more competition. So they will bid the properties up. So whereas I did bid on a property, I won a property, it was like $7,000. But it was our first year going online, so the county kind of made a mistake. So about 7 of us, they had to refund our money because the people came and paid their taxes at the last minute. So because it was their first year going online, they hadn't, made that accountability. They were like, okay, we need to cut off payments sooner so we can take these properties off. But the good thing about tax lien investing that I like is that no matter what property you buy, you're going to get something out of it. So you're never going to lose your money completely. You're either going to get a property or you're going to get your money back plus interest. So
right.
to me, that was like a no-brainer. The only
Right.
thing is that you just had to factor in the time, waiting for it to be redeemed. So you kind of learn along the process, like how to pick properties. Like you may not want to pick a property that's worth $15,000. You may pick a property that's worth, and it's different strategies. So it's one niche, but there are different strategies. Some people invest in properties just to get the interest back. They may know this is a $300,000 property. I know these people are going to pay their back tax.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to lose this property. So when I bid up this property, I know I'm going to get the interest back. So I can bid it up, but it's with the understanding that I'm going to get like 8% or 10% back on my investment plus penalties versus you making what, 0.05% of your money sat in the bank?
Not even that much.
Right. So I've heard of people bidding up properties just because they knew or had talked to the homeowner and knew they had the money to buy their property back. So they would purchase and run the bid up so that they could get the interest and penalties back. And so one guy even said, he was like, that property alone paid for my other properties that I bought at the tax lien sale. So
that is a smart technique.
Mm-hmm.
That's a smart strategy. I never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah.
You can build a business just on that strategy alone.
Right. Just set money aside too and take the interest off of their property and get another property.
Especially if they're $500.
Right. So it's a lot that I learned in that tax lien conference, and he actually has the information online. I think Annette, she has her own course too.
Shanette Williams, she does.
In investing in tax liens. But one thing I learned, like 1 year I bid on 2 properties because he did promote or teach this technique that I thought was real interesting. He was like, your first year, you get 1 property. Your second year, get 2 properties. Your third year, get 3. The fourth year, get 4. By the 5th year, when you get 5 properties, you should have 15 properties and you should be able to retire.
That's true.
So the first year, you're getting the hang of it. You're getting the kinks and you're learning how to do it. The second year, you can handle 2. And so I was like, okay, that's pretty smart. Some people can jump right out there and buy a couple, but you have to remember you got to pay lawyer legal fees for each property. You got to send out the sentences. So you don't want to miss any steps by getting too many properties starting out. But, like I said, I kind of watched and waited. And when I saw people were making money and they were touring these homes, they were getting for $500 and $1,000, I said, oh, sign me up. And you can do some of them online. They have several a year. So that's the good thing. And now with TaskRabbit, what's one of these other things I use? TaskRabbit is one that I've used. Thumbtack, like you can have people do things for you at a cheaper rate than just going with a general contractor. So that was one thing that I learned.
So let's back up because you've said a lot. You've given out a lot of information that probably went over a lot of newbies, heads. Very, very valuable information that is. So let's go back and let's talk about, okay, so let's clarify. Number 1, your specialty and your niche in real estate investing is tax lien investing.
Yes, that's what I've done so far, other than my own home, personal properties. But
okay.
Other properties, tax lien.
Okay, and you've carved out a little honey hole, as I like to call it, and you've identified that Gary, Indiana is like one of the best places. Number 1, because you can get them for as little as $500. And then number 2 is because the redemption period is a lot less than other places, right?
Right. And speaking on the redemption periods, just find out what your city, like what it is, because it's going to be different for every city. So what happened in Memphis is because they changed and went online, they actually changed the redemption process, which is good. So like if you're behind in your taxes, like over 5 years, they're not giving you a whole bunch of time to be redeemed. So they may have a 90-day period versus a year. which is good.
Okay.
So now if I buy this property, now I only have to wait 90 days before I can potentially get the deed. If the property is vacant, you can get it in. No, let's say I think if you're behind over 5 years, you get 6 months. If it's vacant, it's 90 days.
Okay.
So as long as you can prove that that property is vacant by two proofs that it's vacant, then they will, after 90 days, let you get the deed to the home. So you have like 90 days, 6 months, and then a year.
Okay.
And so if you are just recently behind on your taxes, they give you a whole year. If you've been behind like over 5 years, they're giving you like 6 months. So you can look and see, and that makes it, a lot easier to invest and say, okay, well, I only have to put this money away, or I can find out if I potentially had this home in 6 months versus a year. But Gary, Indiana, I believe one of their redemption periods is like 4 months. 4 months, which is not bad at all.
That's not bad at all. Yeah,
it's a big sale, it's a year. Yeah, they have two different sales. So one of the sales is a year redemption period, and the other one is like 4 months.
Okay. All right. So you stated that you purchased the properties in Indiana, but you actually live in Tennessee, right?
Right. And
so with that being said, tell us about the pros and cons to being an out-of-state investor.
Okay. So being an out-of-state investor, I can't really just drive by at any given moment to check on the property. So you can do Google Map, but Google Map can be deceiving. You look at I always look at the date that the picture was taken. Like if it's 2012, that's not a good picture. If it's 2020, it's more than likely, a more up-to-date picture, but you still need to drive by and physically let somebody look at it, walk around it. I think George said once they bought a property, or they were getting ready to buy a property, walked around to the back and the whole backside was missing.
What's gone?
So, right. So you have to do your due diligence. And what I believe in doing, this is before COVID, I traveled, we went and looked at the property first. So we went and we looked at the neighborhood, looked at the homes, how many other vacant homes are on the street. I don't want to buy a property where there are like 5 boarded up houses, unless I know I got 4 friends who are going to buy those boarded up properties too. Because nobody's going to want to move into that. Nobody's going to want to buy it if it looks like that. So I've talked to neighbors. I talked to the neighbors and found out about the homes. You can get their numbers. They can keep an eye on it for you. They can give you information that you can't get online. I also will call the utility company. I'll ask them, how long has this property been vacant? When was the last time the utilities were on? If it's a property that I'm looking about buying, I may ask them, what is the utilities run? So that's something that I would call the utility company for. One thing that I tell people just to make sure that property is not on the demo list, and you may have to get somebody local to help you, find out for each city or state, like how you get that information. But you want to make sure you don't buy a property that's going to be bulldozed or knocked down because it's been abandoned for a while. But,
so do you pretty much have like a checklist that you use when you're going through the process?
Really just like a mental checklist, but I have like the little guide that I got during the conference. So I kind of go through that, and after you've done it a couple of times, you just kind of know, it just kind of comes to you. But I said I was going to get my son into doing and helping, like learning how, what we call scrub the list. So I was going to like put it on paper so that, he can learn how to start doing this too. Like one of the things that George taught, so like one year I bought 2 tax liens, and I thought it would be a good idea to buy some properties where they went bankrupt. So I was like, oh, they went bankrupt. They had to give up their properties. But I found out, that is not a good idea, because I think what they did is they just probably had somebody related to them come up with another business name and purchase the properties. So that's like, if you think about it, if you have a business and you're about to lose your properties, would you not tell your business bestie or whatever to buy it for you, or a family member, so you can get your properties back? So they end up buying it. Somebody came in and bought it before the redemption period, paid the back tax. So,
but it still wasn't a win-win for you, right? Because
I still got
you get your money back plus interest.
Good properties. There were some good properties. I was like hoping for them. I was like, woo. But and so that's when George said, well, let's do this tactic where we go for properties that have a really high back tax bill to
Okay.
pay. So if your property is maybe only worth $45,000 and your tax bill is $30,000, are you going to pay $30,000 in the back tax? So that's how I got one of the properties, because the landlord, he was an out-of-state landlord, and he hadn't paid the back taxes, and the bill got up to $30,000. So
Mm.
that property is one of the properties that I got. I already had a tenant in it. We didn't have to do anything to it. Paid $2,000 for the tax
Mm.
lien, and then we'll be ready to sell it in a minute.
Awesome.
So
Oh my God. It seems like you've got the hang of this thing, and you're like, oh, okay. You're learning the tactics, you're learning how to use different strategies, you're mixing up strategies, like bankruptcy and things like that. And that to me is like one of the biggest things with real estate. Like you don't have to use just one strategy,
right.
to get properties or to build your portfolio. You can mix up some things. You can mix up your strategies, and you can learn how to build a portfolio really quickly by doing that.
Exactly.
And I like what you said about getting in there and talking to neighbors, talking to other investors. If you're in a neighborhood and you see that there's 4 or 5 vacant homes, you're already thinking ahead, like nobody's going to want to move there with all these vacant homes. So getting your investor friends on board saying, okay, well, I'll buy this one, I'll buy that one. And it's kind of like you're buying the block, without saying we're buying the block, but you're being smart about it, and you're forward thinking. And that's the way a successful real estate investor has to think. You have to think outside of the box and say what makes the most sense in this area. Yes, everybody wants to buy a house for $500, but there's more to it than that. And that back part is the part that a lot of people are missing. So they buy the houses and then they end up doing nothing with the house. So let me ask you, so the houses that you get that are vacant, let's talk about the contractors. And the reason why I want to talk about the contractors is the Nurse REI Club, some members went in and bought 2 properties together there. Our very first rehab, and none of us live in Gary, so we're all either out of state or out of the county investors. And vetting contractors that was probably like one of the worst processes. And not only that, but once we did secure a contractor, got through all the paperwork and, vetting them and everything, once they started the project, they were doing, great on task and things like that. But in the middle of the project, they kind of disappeared, as far as they slowed down. I'm not going to say they disappeared.
Okay.
So, I would have to jump on a plane. I would have to fly to Gary or to Chicago. Then I'd have to drive down to Gary. Then I'd have to, figure out what's going on. And so that took time away from other projects. And if you don't have a good crew, a good contractor, it could be the death or almost the death of a project. So where they told us if they could do this in like 30 to 60 days, it actually took them probably about 3 to 4 and a half months. And then the prices that they quoted, Dawna. Now, in hindsight, we should have added like another 30% on top of what they quoted, because it's never what they say it's going to be. They're never going to finish at the timeline. And another thing, we didn't take into consideration that it snows a lot in Indiana in the wintertime. And so that holds things back. We had to get a roof put on. So, it's just a lot of different other factors. So what do you find is like the biggest thing or a barrier with contractors being an out-of-state investor?
So, like I said, you really can't go and see and check on things. What I have kind of learned through the process and like doing this with my own property, and what I did is I had our real estate friend who sold us our home. He kind of mentored me about a few things as well. So, and one thing with contractors, like you said, they may do fine on one job, but the next job they may not hold up to the same standards, or they may start out good or do one area. Like I had somebody replace drywall and she was good. And I was like, oh, can we use a female, minority female? And she came recommended and she did good on the drywall. But when it came to like ceilings was not her specialty. So she did not know or say, is the leak fixed before I go and repair this ceiling? So it's like we had to redo it because that was just not one of her specialties. So it's like a lot of questions you have to ask. Now, one thing that I will say is that George covered that in this conference, or if you even go or take a class, Wealth Fit, or at Bigger Pockets on like estimating rehab costs, so that when you do have somebody come and say, oh, it's going to be, I had somebody quote me $8,000 to replace a roof on our starter home that we had. It was like $8,000. The house is like 1,400 square feet. So already knowing offhand what they say the average cost is, and of course you may account in your pitch or but this is like a starter home. And I was like, no, and he did that because we were going to file it under insurance. But I still feel like, no, that's not right. You're going to charge me like he's going to take a cut for himself, overcharge my insurance company who's going to go on insurance. And so when I talk to my realtor and got a second opinion, and that's what I always do, I'm going to get more than one opinion. I'm going to talk to somebody else. I'm going to look at your reviews. I'm going to look at your work. And so he told me a guy that he uses who was Hispanic, and I got my roof for $1,200. Now, the guy quoted me $8,000. We went with this other guy. He's just an independent, work on his own, no company. This guy was with a company, so he has his own company. General contractors are going to charge you more because they want to take their cut and pay their employees. So when I go straight with the employees, it's already discounted. And I just look at their work and I look at their reviews. So we cut him a check for $1,300. We got the materials. I use Home Depot discount because I joined my local REI association. So I get a discount for that. So all of my materials were like 20 and 30% off, like 20% off. And then he actually left materials that he didn't use. So I took some of those back and got like $200 back. So I may have spent $1,600 for the roof versus and just wrote it off on my taxes. But stuff like that. So then from then on, that's my roof guy. Because I know number one, he's not going to take the supplies. He left them. He did a good job, quick, and gave me a fair price and stuck to it. So I'll try to keep like a running list of like more than one person. So for my roofing, this is who I call. For plumbing, this is who I call. I can use her for drywall, but not on the ceiling, So I just try to keep like a running list of people who I can use, work that I've done. Thumbtack and what's the other one? I'm gonna think of the other one in a minute. TaskRabbit. Thumbtack and TaskRabbit. So like you can go in and look at their reviews and you can look at pictures of work, but it's almost like Uber. So these people are contracting out their services without being attached to like a company.
Gotcha.
And if they don't have good reviews, and then they're going to give you an estimate based on what you tell them, you need done. And to me, their prices are already, because they don't have that overhead from the general contractor. So in my head, I'm already figuring, okay, if he's quoting me $350 to do this, I might be prepared to pay $500. But had I gone with the general contractor, he quoted me $1,200. So that's the one thing that I like about TaskRabbit, and you can be anywhere. So I can be at home and I can pull up on my phone and I can say, hey, can you go by and check behind this person for me and take pictures? So I don't necessarily have to fly or get on a train or travel. And so it's always good to have somebody. And if you can't find anybody, you can use a realtor or somebody who, does that for a living. And you may say, I'm going to sell this property or use you, but can you be my eyes and ears on the ground? And they'll do that. But I used, let's see, you can pay somebody to go and take pictures, and that's the other thing I learned. So the guy that I had cleaning out the tax lien property, so I told him, send pictures before, after you've done every, stages of the work. So he took pictures, but of course he's only taking the pictures showing that he did the work that I asked him to do. He's not taking pictures of like what I need to sell the property or what I need to inspect the property. And I paid somebody like $99.
So what you're saying is boots on the street is like number one for an out-of-state investor. having boots on the street,
Right.
having somebody
Mm-hmm.
to be your eyes and ears. Even if they're doing work for you, having boots on the street is huge. It's big. So
Right.
how did you go about establishing a relationship with people to be able to, like your different contractors? Was it just by using those two tools that you talked about?
Well, the first resource was George. Since I took the conference,
Okay.
he's willing a lot of times to go and look at properties for you. And he took the initial pictures because he's not afraid to go on a property. He'll tell you, I probably don't do this, but if the back door open and I can go in and get pictures, so he will go in and vet a property for me. And then if you don't get him to do it, there are people who you can pay to go and take pictures for you. So Carolyn used to work with him, and she only charges like $25 to go and take pictures of your property to vet that it's a good property, that's not a burnout or demolished or the backup, or it's just a vacant lot. So it's $25. So and usually I would be like, well, hey, take pictures for me as well, and I pay you extra, to get pictures and send them back to me. So if you don't know anybody, even like you said, attending the local real estate, you can partner with somebody that's local, because there are some people who are like, okay, I don't have any money, but I can be your bird dog or your eyes on the ground, and they're going to get something out of it, So if they want to make money, they're going to, be on the up and up and tell you, okay, well, this is not a good property or not a good area.
Yeah.
But if you don't have anybody, you can use those resources, Thumbtack or TaskRabbit, because there are people who are like, I don't have anything to do. I'm gonna run errands. I go stand in line. I take pictures. Whatever you need somebody to do, you can go in there and find it, almost for any state. So
And so for
used
the
those and
listeners,
had good results with using those two resources.
So for the
But there's
listeners,
also somebody, I think you froze.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So for the listeners, it's Thumbtack,
Thumbtack and TaskRabbit.
and TaskRabbit. Okay. All right. So for all of you who are interested in being an out-of-state investor, these are two tools or resources that Dawna uses, Thumbtack and TaskRabbit. So if you're looking to invest out of state, or even in state, but we're talking about out of state right now, then go ahead and get to know the platform or this resource or these resources so that you can start lining up your team per se. Because having a team, we learned with our first rehab that a team is like major, huge. And then another thing that Dawna mentioned was about the local REIA, REIA. And I just said that, I literally just said that this morning to my Nurse REI Club group. I did a video this morning and said, I need everybody who is serious about investing to attend your next local REIA, your real estate investor association. And the reason why I said that is because you learn your players. I lost you, but I kept talking. You learn your players. Attending those local REIAs is very important. You find out, that's where you get a lot of contractors. That's where you get your title company, your attorneys. That's where you get deals. You get, wholesalers attend. And obviously, like you said initially, equity is huge. Beyonce said it, pay me in equity. Equity is huge, but we also know that equity doesn't pay the bills. But a real, a prudent investor knows that, first of all, you got to get a good deal. If you don't get a good deal, if the property doesn't have equity, then you're already lost. You lost. It's a wash. You're not going to make any money. You're going to lose money. The property, number one, has to have equity. And then number two, you have to, so we were talking about we're talking about going to the REIAs and
Mm-hmm.
the wholesalers. Well, they have these properties that you can get off market with a lot of equity. And once you analyze the deal and find out, oh no, they're trying to get too much in their assignment fee, then you just have to negotiate and say, no, it's not enough equity for me.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta
Right.
have a goal in mind before you start doing any type of investment, and before you start using your strategy like yours is tax lien. So which I think is awesome. I think it's a great strategy for those who want to get started and maybe not have a $50,000, $60,000 or $70,000 to purchase a house. It does take a lot of work. It takes discipline. It takes organization to get started, and you can't just think you're just going to buy a property for $500 and just become a millionaire. Obviously, you had a plan. You're still on you're working your plan. First year by one, second year by two, third year, by your fifth year, you have about 15 doors, that way you can do it. I do know that Shanette, she probably has like 24, 27 doors. And I think she started like maybe 2 years ago. She used a different strategy, that worked. She has a few apartment buildings and things like that. I mean, she paid $500 for. I mean, it's I don't know, it's awesome. I really like it. So Dawna, tell people what you wish you would have known before you got started.
Ooh, I wish I would have known, number one, how easy it is, because I think a lot of people, we let fear, risk stop us from just jumping out there. And so, like I said, the first year I watched, these other people who invested in this program, I was buying. I said, let me see. And then when one girl said, I got 30,000 off of mine, we bought my property and I sold it, and her cut, not her cut, like George got his cut, her cut was 30,000. So, and we talked, and she was like, she did a little bit more. She had to do more promoting than she thought. She thought, that they were going to do everything, but it's all work. You still had to put in your own work. But had I started earlier, you know what I mean, and like follow like the plan, but I'm like tiptoeing, trying to be careful. And so I said, let me just partner with him, and that way I get the hang of it, and I won't let fear keep me from just making a move, period. Number one. And number two, I would have started earlier. I probably would have partnered earlier. And number two, I would have started looking at multi-units, because it's the same amount of work, but you get more money. So that, is 2 and 3 and 4 units. I also took a course from Key Resource, and she talks about house hacking. So even if you're using your own property, renting a room or something out to get started, but doing multi-units, because you can get that on your own personal loan versus it being a commercial loan, as long as it's under a unit. So had I known that I could have started out and got like a 2 or 3 or 4 unit with a regular conventional loan and still use like grants or a low down payment. So when you know better, you do better. And then you try to tell your folks so they can do better.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Turn your volume down
even before you get your,
got some feedback.
Okay. But even if you do your, even if you are not buying your own property yet, because there are some people who are like, well, I still stay at home with my parents, or I'm in school, college. If the opportunity comes to get one, a duplex, triplex, you jump on it. Yeah. Also, condos or commercial properties, because especially if you have if you ever think you may do your own business, just go ahead and buy like a condo. Because when you look up how much you would pay to rent or lease a space, it's like me as a nurse practitioner, I could go and do my own practice. And when I just run the numbers, I would be paying them $90,000. And I could just buy the condo
as a business,
commercial condo.
Yeah, buy the condo as a business. All right, y'all, we're having some technical difficulties. Everybody's using Zoom now. Everybody's out of school. Everybody's doing virtual school, so Zoom is freezing up. It's knocking us out, but that's okay. We're going to still get this information out. We're going to get this information out. So you were talking about condos, and you were counting the cost, and you were like, well, shoot, I can get a condo for $500 and under my business name, and you're an F&P and you can run a business, right?
Right. So yeah, because the condos, if you find one and it's foreclosure, somebody's selling it and it's 40,000, you might think, but I don't like the area, but I mean the rent that you would get off of it. Like I said, I would be paying 90,000 to lease, and that would pay for it in the first year or two.
Yep.
So, you can always lease it out to other people or write it off as a business expense, use it and sublease it.
That's it.
Everybody's moving towards virtual co-working as well too. So it's always things that you can do with properties.
Dawna, there is so much money in real estate. There is so much money. Oh my God. Like, we could talk about the different ways to make money all day long and still not run out of ways to make money in real estate. But like you said, number one, what you would tell people, just get started. Don't wait so late. Because once you get in the game and start building momentum, let's say tax lien investing is not for you, for that person. But they can learn, okay, I don't like tax lien investing, but I do like, let's say, wholesale. I do like wholesaling. Right. So I could wholesale, I could just go in and I don't have to do anything, and I could just go in, bid on the house or whatever, and then just flip it and be done with it. And let somebody else do the other part. I mean, there's just so many ways you could do it. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. So I guess I wanted to ask you something else. We were talking about the out-of-state investing, the pros and the cons to the out-of-state investing. Just to recap, having boots on the street is huge. And also a network, building a network so that you can have, you're not doing all the work, Right. You're kind of like your own project manager per se. So you build your network. Now you have this person taking pictures, you have this person doing the roof, you have this person doing the drywall, and then everybody's taking pictures of their work, but what they don't know is they're really taking pictures of everybody else's work too. Right. And I learned that from a nurse friend down in Fort Lauderdale. She has, or I don't know how many houses she has now, but she had 23 doors, and she obtained those in 11 months in Ohio. And how she did that was she built her team from her realtor. Okay. So yeah, she got a good realtor. Then she took the realtor said, okay, this is a good person to use as your property manager. And then the property manager said, this is a good person to use as your contractor for your roof, for your floors or whatever. So what she said she would do, like she'd have the plumber scheduled to go in, let's say 12 o'clock. So she would tell the plumber, when you get there, do me a favor. I need you to take a picture of my floors. I know it's not what you do, but I just need you to. So what she was doing was she was using all her contractors to check on the other contractors' work, which was brilliant. And what it did was it allowed her to scale her model much faster because she built a network. And it sounds like that's what you're doing as well. You are actually building your team. It's kind of like a link. One person will link you to another person, that will link you to another person. And I know I hadn't met you, and this is the first time we talked, but we both know George. And actually, George sold us our first 2 properties in Gary. Okay. From tax sale, he sold us those properties, and he was telling us that he's just something about nurses. I don't know what it is, but y'all get in there, y'all get things done. Like, he was telling me about you and about, you taking his course and things like that, and how well you were doing. And so, yeah, it's just a huge network. And, after hearing some of the things, you're doing, I've learned a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I've learned a lot. Now, fixing and flipping is not my thing, or going in and buying a property and I got to rehab that property. That's not my thing. I've figured out my niche, and that's group homes. You know,
Mhm.
I still, be an investor. I can get properties, from people like George or people like you, or, hey, can you go to get a property at tax sale for me, and I'll pay you whatever. And then I can just take that property and turn it into a group home. So that's my niche. And that's something that I know earlier you and I had talked about before the podcast that you were interested in doing as well. Can you tell me why you're interested in doing a group home?
So part of my background is labor and delivery. So I started out as a labor and delivery nurse first. Then when I went got my master's, I went and did family for a while, but then I ended up back in women's health. And so I just have a natural attraction to working with women and young girls. I used to do prenatal classes, and a lot of these young girls, I realized they didn't have anybody to tell them use birth control, and some of them, they ask them, okay, do you want to get on birth control? And they may say, no, but when we put them in a group, peer pressure, they'd be like, oh, you're going to get the implant on? Okay, okay, well, I guess I'll try it. And now you can hardly talk them into using something one-on-one, but with this peer pressure, when they see their peers are going to try something, so now you have them getting on a birth control that's going to keep them from getting pregnant in like 3 to 5 years, depending on what they use. And everybody in the group is on it, and they're going to do much better. They're going to be able to finish school. And so part of me always wanted to still work with young women. So naturally combining it with group homes or getting like the girls who are aged out of foster care, because a lot of them end up in sex trafficking.
Yes,
or,
they do.
They don't give them life skills where they can get a job, and they just kind of end up drugs, abuse, in bad situations. So to me, we'll combine the best of two, that you can kind of mentor them and have programs. And I think Andy with Group Home Riches, he talked to a woman who did aged out foster care kids, but she just kind of fell into it. And then
Vanessa.
Yeah, I think that's, yes.
Yeah, that's her.
So I said I need to go back and like talk to her, because that's just been one of like my, I wouldn't even, I wouldn't do it for money. It's something that I would enjoy doing, talking to girls in the group home, but to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna take this property and have it especially for girls who have aged out of foster care, because they really feel like they don't have anywhere to go to or don't have family. And that's one thing I like about Vanessa. She said a lot of those girls came back, even after they went out and did good things on their own, they will come back to her for advice, and and just like almost like family. But
absolutely,
that's the area that I'm kind of trying to research and looking into. And so after listening to you all's podcasts and stuff about you can sublease where you don't have to actually go out and purchase a property. And now there are like a bunch of people who are like, okay, I don't have anybody paying my rent right now. I want to get rid of this property. And so I'm like, shoot, there's a lot of options to choose from. It's just getting ready. So that's the part of the stage and now where I'm like, I need to, talk with people who are in a position to place people and kind of get that moving and set in stone before.
Absolutely.
And then I would like go ahead and get a property, because I've already started talking to people who could actually lease a property that is like what I would say is more conducive to being a group home, like it has a master suite or a master bath.
Yep.
Den mother or group home mother could
house manager. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So trying to get that, moving at the same time. And I know some people will sometimes think, well, are you going to try to do this and you trying to do that? But I'm trying to be like you and Tamara Neely, and I just call it planting seeds. Plant a seed over here, you plant a seed over there, plant a seed, and what they say, 7 streams of income. You can't really depend on one stream anymore.
You cannot.
You have backup.
Absolutely. It's funny that, yes, it's funny that you talked about Tamara, because Tamara is who got me started in the group homes. I've always wanted to do group homes, just didn't really, just get busy doing other things, and I didn't really entertain it that much. But she was like, girl, you buying all these properties, you got all these doors all over the United States, you need to be doing group homes. She said, you're dealing with one tenant, and if the tenant doesn't pay, then you don't get any rent. She's like, girl, turn these into group homes. And I'm not gonna lie, that's probably the most rewarding thing that I've ever done. And I'm gonna say in nursing / real estate, because as an investor, it's the bottom line as an investor. Everybody knows that. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And the risk, versus the reward, that's big as an investor. We're willing to take a big risk if we got a big reward. So,
Right.
it just made sense for me. And as a nurse, you have that caring spirit anyway. So you want to help the community. You want everybody to be healthy, wealthy, and whole.
Right.
We're holistic beings, and as a nurse, we want to cater to people that way. And I just think, I get excited when we talk about group homes. I get real excited. So, a lot of people don't know where to start, or they have a property and just don't know, like you said, the right people to talk to that'll get your group homes filled. And a lot of people they really don't understand the niche that they think they want to do. So I was like, we're teaching this anyway. Let's just do a conference and go on tour. So that's why you see this behind me. So we said, all right, let's do it. So we called it the group home blueprint. We got the blueprint and we put the 2.0 because it's her and it's myself. And we're all doing we're both doing different things. Her niche in the group home industry is veterans, serving vets, and getting government contracts. So, we ain't talking about $1,000, 5-figure contracts or 6-figure contracts. We're talking about 7-figure contracts. So you get a property as an investor. I don't care if you lease it, just get one, get plugged in, get your business ready to be, we call it get it contract ready. So get your business listed with the government so you can do business with them. And that one property can bring you 7 figures. One property. That's a no-brainer. One property can bring you 7 figures.
Right.
And so she's starting tomorrow another grant with the government. So she'll be housing 20 vets between 2 properties. Where can you go and one property brings you 7 figures? Like where?
I know, that's crazy.
Where?
It's crazy to pass that up.
Yes. And so I know Vanessa, you spoke about her. Vanessa has a nonprofit. And that's another little thing that we can talk about. The nonprofits, if you have a for-profit and then you have a nonprofit, that you can get funding from your nonprofit to feed into your for-profit. Under one property. Can you imagine if you had a multi-unit property? If you had like a apartment complex or apartment building, can you imagine how easy it is to scale and you're under one roof? It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. So we love it. We're starting our conference and we're kicking it off in Jacksonville on October 30th and 31st. So Dawna, you need to come hang out with us, girl. Yeah, girl, you need to come hang out.
Okay. Okay. 30th, 31st.
31st, yeah, we'll be at Jacksonville. Then we're headed to, I want to say the next stop is in Houston or whatever. But anyway, I'm just going to put the link. I'll post the link or whatever. So, Dawna, do you do any consulting for tax lien investing or anything like that?
I can. I don't mind talking to anybody about it because, I love doing it. I love telling people what I've learned through trial and error, and it keeps them from like making some of, you just get quicker to the area that you need to be without having to make your own mistakes. So I don't have any problem with consulting with anyone. If they're interested in doing it, I feel like it's the quickest way for me to get properties without losing a lot of money up front, because you're going to get either property or you're going to get your money back with interest.
Okay. So I I will attach the links to the podcast and the video. I'll attach the links on how they can contact you. Is on social media, or which way would you like to be contacted?
Yeah, they can do social media. It's just under my name on Facebook.
Okay. All right. So Dawna Willis. Okay, on Facebook. All right, Dawna. Well, thank you for joining us. We're having a lot of technical difficulties, so we keep losing Dawna. So I said we'll just go ahead and wrap up. So this is our 5th episode of Real Estate Investing for Nurses Happy Hour. Thank you for joining us, Dawna.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
All right.